Good to see you. What?
Hey, you too. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, boy. I'm good. It's
Long
been
time
a
no
long
see.
time since I've seen you face to face.
Yeah, yeah, long
Uh,
time.
Ladies and gentlemen, today on the show, we've got a special guest, an old friend of mine from back home in Newfoundland. Now, Tom, you were a few years older than me, but our circles crossed through music and basically the Newfoundland skate and punk culture. So
Yeah, I think we met in like maybe 85.
that's what I think it was. Yeah.
Yeah,
You
I would have been 18.
right.
Maybe even 84, boy, maybe.
I think it might have been 84. Because you like I said, you were part of the little bit older scene than me. And you had been with originally you started playing with Public Enemy, right? You were the original bass player for Public Enemy.
Yeah. I never played live with them, but for the first handful of uh practices, I was
Yeah.
playing bass, and it was me and Craig Murray, Dave Clark on drums, and Bob Average on guitar.
Wow.
And then
So
I left, and then that's when John Pastore joined the band.
yeah, that's when Pastore came in. Yeah. So you were and by the time that had happened, that was when I kind of came in the scene. Like Tough Justice and Schizoid and all that stuff was happening. Public Enemy was kind of, just phasing out. So I think it was probably 84 when we met.
You just hold on one sec, sir. I got to turn off that fan. It's making a bad noise. Go
oh
ahead,
yeah,
sir.
yeah. So yeah, so we go back to, and I'm always talking about this sort of period of time in the 80s when we had, the skateboard culture and the punk rock culture and the new wave culture, and there was all of us sort of people between 14 and 20, and then there was a whole other group of people between like 35 and 50 from the acting community, the Codco gang.
Yeah,
And we
yeah.
all just kind of merged into this big incestual mass of artistic craziness that existed for a few years, which was, when I look back on it now at 55, I've never seen another time in my life when the sort of intergenerational artistic communities got together like that. And I think it was kind of a perfect storm in Newfoundland. Now there's been lots of documentaries or lots of documenting of the Newfoundland punk rock sort of history scene, but a lot of it happens. A lot of what I've seen is focused more on the late 80s, early 90s. Now, in talking to you recently, you're starting to work on a project that's going back a little bit further, and going to
Yeah, yeah.
talk about the original sort of punk rock scene in Newfoundland, like starting back with the Slime, and the Riot and bands like that that sort of really
And the
fostered.
reaction.
Yeah, bands that really sort of fostered the scene that we were part of, me and you.
Yeah, yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about that project? You got some great people involved with it. What's going on?
Yeah, we're basically at the. I've been trying to get this on the go for like 12 years, and just overwhelming thinking about all the people you got to contact,
Hmm.
all the assets and the music, and it's just overwhelming. And
Yeah,
then when Mike Heffernan came out with his book, Let It All Fall,
that's right.
I was like, okay, here we go. I've got a template. He's already done interviews,
Yeah,
voice recording interviews with a couple hundred people, which I can access. And he sort of got kind of a rough timeline of the scene.
yeah,
So originally, I talked to Mike and said, okay, we're going to use your book and license your book and go from there. But then as I started to progress with it, I was like, well, I don't want to just do music. There's a whole like you just said, there's this whole theater crowd.
hmm,
Half the people that played in bands were actors in the theater. Half the actors played in the bands. Like it was, like you said, it was one big massive scene. You go to a show, everybody would be there.
yeah,
And I was like, well, I got to include this. So basically, as I got my team together, we basically went from like, okay, let's start in mid 70s with Codco,
yeah,
right? Then we'll go into the theater scene because I mean, the Slime, they were
yeah,
basically like a theater group playing,
yeah,
like they wore costumes and had all kinds of props and everything. And it was like watching theater, but
yeah,
they were up there on this early punk rock stuff. So then I was like, okay, so we're going to combine it all. So it just kept growing and growing and growing. And, there was Cat Fudd and Corey and Wade's Playhouse with like Rick Mercer and Andrew Younghusband, all of them
yeah,
came out of. I was like, We got to get in. And you know, you go to the shows and Rick Mercer be up in front of you slam dancing on the dance floor. You know, it was like, so basically we got to the point where it just grew and grew and grew. But we're at the point now where I have an amazing team together. We got our deck sheet, everything all done, and the next stage now is go talk to some broadcasters and distributors and get some money and hopefully be able to get this thing made.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And this has spun off into, or oh, sorry, did this spin off, or was this a spin off from the idea of doing the T-shirts for Screech NL, which is the thing that
For
caught
Screech
my eye.
NL, sorry, I said I've been trying to get this documentary. I've had it brewing in my head for 10 or 12 years. And so that idea would have obviously come first. The T-shirt business kind of, ScreechinL.com kind of, it wasn't my plan to launch a website selling T-shirts, okay? I was basically 5 or 6 months ago, I was going through some old backup disc and stuff, and I found some photos of some Thomas Tree on the Red Albino T-shirts I had designed back in like 90, 91, 92.
Yeah.
I didn't have the original files because back then I didn't have a computer. It was all hand-drawn, right?
Yeah.
So it was just photos. And I was like, I'm going to recreate these now on the computer for a laugh. So I recreated the Thomas Trio ones. And I sent them off to Louis and stuff. And he was like, oh, yeah, cool. I was like, maybe we could sell these. He's like, well, he's like, I was like, how? And then he suggested, he said, well, we'd probably be interested if we could like donate some of the sales to some kind of fund. Right. And I was like, well, how about the fund you and your brothers created for your mom? Yeah. The Roberta Thomas Legacy Award, which gives like $1,500 a year through Neighborhood Dance Works to a local artist.
Yeah.
And I was like, sounds perfect. So then I was like, well, I can't just sell Thomas Trio shirts. So I reached out and contacted every single person I possibly can that I knew in different bands. And basically now I've got like 30 something different bands and businesses and like over 100 different designs, and it just grew. So it took a while to get going because I basically had to recreate pretty much every T-shirt design from scratch because most of them are like photos of some guy wearing a T-shirt from, you know, 86 or something, and or black and white flyers from posters and shows and stuff. So that took a while to recreate all them. And then I had to get permission from every member of every band, of every business, get them to sign off on it. So that took another couple months.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, it finally all came through. And pretty much 90%, over 90% of the bands or businesses or members of the bands have donated their royalties from the sales to the fund as well. So pretty much all the money, besides what goes to the printers and, you know, some business expenses, it's all going to this fund.
Yeah.
So it's been pretty good. The site's only been up for about 4 or 5 weeks. We almost had 80 orders so far.
Awesome. Awesome. And I've got
in terms of shirts, and we're about a third. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, I got all the artwork for the shirts. We'll put them in and let people see what they look like as well, because they're very cool looking designs. Yeah.
There's some great designs there.
There really are, and you've done an amazing job. I want to get to your art history or your art life in just a minute. But as an aside, for those of you watching, Roberta Thomas. So Robbie, as we know her, for me, it was Danny Thomas's mom, Robbie, and Danny had his brothers Louie and Lil, and Danny, Louie, and Lil, and Jody Richardson were the Thomas Trio and the Red Albino, with a few other members that popped in over the years, Laurie Cooper and stuff. But that was the core four. Now, growing up as a teenager in Newfoundland, Robbie Thomas was the one who made sure all the girls were on the pill, made sure the guys were wearing condoms. If you had a bad acid trip, you'd go to Robbie's house and she'd talk you down from it. She was the adult teenager amongst us that kept us all kind of, you know, gave us a place where we could go get
100%
without getting parental bullshit. And Robbie,
and you got to remember all the bands, a lot of those bands that formed that came out in the 80s, they all had some kind of connection to Robbie and Fleming Street.
Absolutely, they did. Fleming Street was a jam house. It was a party house. It was a safe house. And Robbie made that available for all of us. And she became kind of the downtown mom for, like, I know for the downtown kids, you know, the ones that like, you know, the Johnny Fishers and Sebastian and Dean and all the ones that live downtown, it was a real tight core with them. But even for me being a suburban kid coming down, Robbie took, you know,
Yeah.
me under her wing. And I mean, every time there was a bad thing, she was there to help me through it. So it's so
Yeah, same
amazing.
here. I grew up up in the suburbs too, but I spent all my time downtown, and especially at Fleming Street.
Exactly. And it's so amazing after all these years to hear that there's something happening, that all these bands from back then are now giving back to the Roberta Thomas Legacy Fund, which is amazing. It's amazing that it exists, and I'm so happy that people are a part of it. So that's a very incredible thing too. So back to your history again. We met in the punk scene. You were singing for bands, you were playing bass, you were a musician, but at the same time, you were a little bit on the outskirts as an artist. And after your time with PTR and all these great bands, I mean, PTR were a big part of the scene. I'm sure you'll be doing a lot about it in the documentary. The PTR stood for the part-time reggae band, right?
Yep, yep. And
And
that was basically the first lineup of that was Lil and Louie.
yeah,
Lil Thomas on lead guitar, Louis Thomas on drums,
yeah,
Terry Stone on sax,
that's
me
right.
singing percussion, Jerry Wood on bass,
Yeah,
and Todd McLean on guitar, and
yeah.
Tara Ralph on keyboards. I think that was the first lineup.
Wow. And this was the
And
first time.
we started jamming at Fleming Street
Yeah,
just for a laugh, playing reggae and stuff. And then we suddenly had our first real gig. Probably one of our very first gig was opening up for Lillian Allen,
oh yeah,
who came down to do a benefit show. I think for the Peace Accord, maybe the first or second year.
could have been. Yeah, that sounds about right.
And we played at the BIS,
Yes,
what was it, the Benevolent Irish
Benevolent
Society.
Irish Society. Yeah.
Yeah, we played in there, and then after that, we just started getting more gigs, and then we sort of became the housebound for Bounders when it opened up.
Yeah,
Lil was working at Mary Jane's,
yeah,
which was right next door to Bounders. And Jack, who was setting up Bounders, used to go in there every day and like a sandwich and a coffee while it was renovating. And then one day, Lil just said, "Hey, what are you doing over there?" He's like, "Oh, opening up in a bar and stuff." He's like, "What kind of bar?" He's like, "Oh, I don't know." He's like, "Do you want to have a band?" And he's like, "Sure." And Lil was like, "I got a band." He's like, "You want to play this weekend?" All right. And it's like, Lil calls us up. We got a gig. We got a gig.
yeah,
And basically, that very first show at Bounders, which basically became the prime factor, the alternative bar to go to every weekend. The very first show was PR with Dog Meat Barbecue opening.
yeah.
And we basically became the house band for the first 3 or 4 weeks with a different band opening for us. We kept our gear there. We rehearsed there during the days, and
Yep.
it's a great spot.
That's a common thing in Newfoundland, actually, sort of leaving your gear around. It always amazed me how
You can't
many.
do that now.
Yeah, it amazed me that, you know, you used to leave a bass amp here and a drum kit there, and you just bring it from club to club and use whatever was there. But yeah, too many skeets down there nowadays.
Oh yeah, big time.
So you went from the PTR band now, and then I left at that point, and I remember you were in. You came up to Toronto with the Thomas Trio, and it was your place
Yeah.
on Craven Road that became management headquarters, rehearsal headquarters. All the band and their girlfriends lived there, plus you and all the displaced Newfoundlanders, and it was quite a party zone for a couple of years.
It was a great party house that's almost down by the beaches, detached,
Yeah.
which, a lot of those houses in that area weren't detached. Big, massive open space. They actually filmed a video for, I can't remember what song it was, one of
Oh,
the Thomas Trio songs.
I think it was 142 through.
No, no, that was
Oh,
filmed in a studio. I think it might have been Sun Rising.
it was. Yes, you're right.
And it was all done in one big take. We basically had a house party, and the cameraman went all through the house, one big take, and it ends opening up the fridge, and Randy Canoe's inside the fridge, and he hands out a beer. He was the only one that could fit in the fridge.
Oh my.
But yeah, I've seen it a couple times on Much Music, but it's hard to find.
Yeah.
I'm hoping to get a good copy of it for the documentary at some point.
That'd be awesome to relive some of that stuff.
Because I got yeah, another thing that kind of got the ball rolling for the documentary was that I had read somewhere that Bell Media was digitizing all footage from all the years of Much Music stuff to license to people. And I was like, huh, that's interesting. So I've been in contact with them and gave them like a 2-page list of stuff that I want. And they're going to do a search and get it. And then obviously I'll be able to license it.
Oh, that's great.
But
That's
obviously
great.
I'm not going to get them to do the search or license it until I have money from a broadcaster.
Exactly, exactly, and that's what's coming down the pipe.
But it's there. It's there. They've digitized it all into 4K footage, so it's there.
Oh, good, good.
Everything, like all the Mike and Mike's Cross Canada Adventures,
Yeah.
Much East with Mike Campbell. Like there's all kinds of stuff. They came down here 4 or 5 times. I mean, they came down here in like 86 or 87. Film PTR, Dead Reckoning. Like there's all kinds of stuff there, right?
Oh yeah, no, it's
So
all
it's pretty
there.
exciting.
Got to get the clearance for it, of course.
Oh yes.
So Tom,
Well, that's it. I got to license it first, then I got to declare clearance from all the artists, just like I had to do with the T-shirts.
Exactly.
But luckily, I have all the contacts now from doing the T-shirt stuff. And while I was talking to them about the T-shirts, I mentioned in the documentary to give them a heads up. So, kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone, right?
Exactly. Well, it was the same
that's
when
good.
I did the Joey interview. The Joey Shithead interview a few months back. I circled around the 1983 show, I think it was, that you were around for, and we talked a lot about that. And I asked Joey if we could use that in the documentary, and he gave us some clearance there too. So you're collecting sources. Well, that's great. You're using all your Newfoundland people and your connections that you've made over the years to put this together. I think it's an amazing labor of love. And I hope, I hope you get a broadcaster to come on and give you some dough to make it happen. And you're no stranger to that type of world either. Like after the music and all that, you went into art direction. You were doing digital arts. You started a magazine called The Current, which was like an entertainment paper at home. And you spent a good chunk of almost 2 decades doing that, or is that still your day job? Or
yeah. Well, I originally got started back in when I was like 14 or 15 years old. I would do hand painted T-shirts for my friends. They'd come to me with the cover of Stiff Little Fingers Go For It. Can you put that on a T-shirt? So I would draw it by hand, color it in, and sell them to them. And then from there, I just started doing like T-shirt poster designs for bands, like Thomas Trio and obviously my own band PTR. Then when we moved to Toronto, I continued to do that. I actually worked for a while with I remember the guy's name, Mates Entertainment Group. Okay. I did some CD designs for them. He was a Newfoundlander who was up there, started a King Apparatus, a few bands like that. I did their graphics and their T-shirt designs. Then I went to school and basically got educated in what I was already doing graphic design. And then from there, I went and did 3D animation, visual effects, and stuff like that. And I got hired by a company called Buzz Image Group in Montreal, doing animation and visual effects for big Hollywood movies. I moved to Montreal then, spent 3 or 4 years there. Most of the people I ended to meet and hang out with were all writers with the alternative press in Montreal. Our Magazine, I See, right? The Mirror, and to hang out with those guys all the time. And moved back here, started up Digital to Go, a little small boutique animation visual effects company with Pat Dunn. Mm-hmm. We were only going for 4 or 5 years and then, went bankrupt. But I was back here about a year and I was like, geez, there's so much art and culture and stuff going here. How come we don't have one of those like alt magazines like Now or So I started one up. And that lasted about 4 or 5 years and then obviously went under. We started bi-weekly at first, but then it was too much work. But it was kind of like those papers, music, art, theater, you know, gay column, a sex column, news,
Yeah,
you know,
the
basically what they
standard.
do there. So it's fun. Got pissed a lot of people off. Had the
Well,
police come, a couple police investigations a few
yeah.
times. Charges dropped.
Yeah, that's in the magazine business was hard sort of in the heyday. And I think the current was kind of you guys were battling the change from
It was around that time. Digital was just coming up, right? It was
yeah,
late 90s, early 2000s. The
yeah,
internet was starting to take off.
yeah.
Yeah, it was, you know, it was fun though.
It was cool to
It
do it.
lasted. There was a couple more alternative papers after that that, you know, lasted 2 or 3 years
Yeah,
here, and then, you know, just couldn't do it, right?
exactly,
Like
exactly.
you said, the internet.
The internet changed everything.
That it did.
Tom, it's been great catching up. I got a ton of photos and stuff that I'm going to add to this so people can get an idea of the scope of what you've been doing, what is happening with Screech NL, and what's happening with Screchin, the documentary. It's a really interesting part of Newfoundland culture that you're capturing, and it's a part of the culture for me. It's personally, you know, that time, that sort of 4 to 6 year period, you know, when we all hung out on Atlantic Place steps, and then we started becoming musicians and playing in bars. And it was such a huge part of my life. You know, I still kind of feel like I'm there most days. But
Well, make sure you show a graphic of one of the outfit shirts. Your first band.
I missed you there. What was that?
I said, make sure you show a graphic of the Waffet
Oh,
design
yeah.
shirt.
Yes, what a fucking
Your
ugly
first
truck.
band.
My first punk band. That's right. Yeah, you know, you've got that on the docket as well, which is really cool. I think we've
Yeah,
covered
there's
most everything.
still listen, there's still so many bands that I can still add
Oh, I
that I'm
know.
still trying to work out. I mean, Lemon Tree, Chevy, fucking truck.
Yep.
Like, there's still so many bands,
It's
right?
amazing how many bands a town like St. John's, and I also found Winnipeg was very like it too. And it might be the long winters, but to have that many original bands regularly you know, coming up into the scene, 3, 4, 5 people getting together, writing, you know, 10 to 15 original songs, having a career for a year or so, and then breaking up and starting again and writing all these new songs. You know, I don't see that elsewhere. I see a lot of cover bands happening over and over again, but it seems like Newfoundland is really, really big on, like, we're going to make original music. We're going to make our stamp. We're going to do our thing.
Yeah.
I find that
Yeah.
amazing.
I mean, you think, yeah, I mean, during the 80s, I mean, you know, the 80s and the early 90s here in town was, I mean, like you said, the scene was, there was just so much.
Yeah.
And what was nice about it was that, you know, you could go to a bowling alley or a pool hall or a church basement on a Friday night and watch a bunch of hardcore bands, and then Saturday night it's watching the Roger House play blues. But it's all the same people that were
It's
at the
all the
punk
same
show the
people.
night before,
Yep.
right?
It
It
was
was
an
just one
amazing
big scene.
scene.
It didn't matter what kind of music it was. People went out and supported everybody.
Yep. It was, I don't know. Like I said, I've never seen a time like that in my life. And I'm so glad to have been a part of it. And I'm so happy that people like yourself are working to preserve the story of what we went through. It's really cool. It's really,
Yeah. I think it's important. I think it's
I think it is
important.
too. So, Tom, the Screech NL website is up now. And that's, is that just screechnl.com?
HNL.com.
Okay. So that's up. You can go buy your T-shirts there now and support the Robbie Thomas Fund, and also get the word going to try and get some more interest in making this documentary, and getting some funding behind Tom and the gang that he's got there. It'd be great. Did we miss anything, Tom, or
I think we pretty much covered everything.
we're pretty
Talked
much
about
covered?
current, the T-shirt, documentary, 80s bands.
Yeah, okay.
No, all good.
Covered it. Excellent. Tom, it's been great. It's been great hanging for a few minutes, and it's really nice to catch up and see you again in person. And I look forward when I'm back this fall. I'm hoping to get back this fall again. Maybe we'll get together and have an actual coffee in person. That'd be nice to see you.
Yeah.
See some
Oh
folks.
yeah, we never talked about white trash compactor.
Oh, we didn't. Tell us a little bit about that. It's a great shirt. So where did that shirt come from, and what's White Trash Compactor all about?
White Trash Compactor was kind of a one-off band. Jody, the Thomas Tree and the Red Albino just broke up.
Yeah.
Jody was just kind of hanging out, not really doing much. Then we got a call from the Bong and the Liz Band crowd saying they wanted to come up to Toronto and do a show.
Mm.
So I think Lee probably pulled some connections and got him a gig at Sneaky D's. So me and Jody were sitting around, and I said, we should start a punk band, open up for them when they come up. He's like, yeah, sure. And the show was like in 4 weeks.
Yeah.
We didn't have any songs. We had no band, nothing. So I was like, let's make a few calls. So I got Bob Ash, Randy Canute, drums. Jody played guitar. Dick Snyder on a lead guitar, and me singing.
Yeah.
And me and Jody said, hey, well, we need to write at least 6 or 7 or 8 songs. So we went off. I wrote a couple. He wrote a couple. We co-wrote a couple together. Got together once with the group on acoustic guitars. Basically showed them the basics.
Yeah.
I think a week later we jammed once as a band in the basement at Craven Road. Then we got up, and that was it.
Wow.
Brian Power recorded the show, which I've released. There's a bunch of videos on Facebook of the shows. No video footage, just the music with the lyrics and stuff.
Right.
And we played one more time 10 years later on the roof of Junctions for a current magazine 1 year. It was either 1 or 2 year anniversary.
Yeah.
And we had a bunch of bands played, and we got up and did all the songs again with a couple like Stiff Little Fingers covers and stuff like that. But all in all, it was a one-off, but it was fun.
It goes to
the recordings are, they're not the greatest because, like I said, we only rehearsed once, right? But all in all, they're great musicians, so it came out pretty good.
Yeah, and it is a bit of a point towards the power of a good band name. White Trash Compactor is one of those bands that's been around forever, and they've got they've been playing for years. It's just because the name is so good. It's just like it immediately sort of has an existence all of its own, even without the music and the band.
I remember when me and Jody were sitting around trying to think of the name. I don't know exactly who came up with it, but it was one of those things. As soon as it was said, it was like, oh, that's the name. Right?
Exactly.
And that's the one comment I have from a lot of people. Great band name, man. Great band name.
Yeah, it really is. The power of a good name.
Yeah.
Hey, Tom. Well, thank you very much, my friend. I wish you all the best. I hear you're having a heat wave back in Newfoundland right now, are you?
Yeah, it's a hot one today. It's supposed to be like this all week, actually, I think.
That's good.
But that's the way it usually goes. See, Regatta Day is next Wednesday. Not this one coming, the 7th of August. And usually up to Regatta Day, we have really nice weather. And then as soon as Regatta Day hits, goes down.
Turns over, and it can turn over real quick back there.
Oh, yes, really quick. Really quick.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you take care of yourself, buddy.
Make sure you give me a contact when you're heading back.
I will, for sure. And I'll send you a little snippet from this to get your approval before we run it, and everything should be cool.
Excellent. You have a good one, man. Cheers.
Okay, brother. You
nice
have a good
chat,
man. Cheers.
All right, bud.